Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session on managing stress and pressure, a session on stress management. If all of y'all can hear me very clearly, please give me a big yes in the chat box so that I know that the presentation is seen to y'all and that you can hear me clearly. Okay. And while you are at it in the chat box, ensure that you convert your in the two part there, convert it to panelists and attendees and not just to panelists, because if you just send it to panelists, it comes to me, and I want most of your messages that you see not just to come to me, but to everybody else, so that everybody else sees them as well, right? So change it there. Okay, I think most of y'all can see and hear me. So that's good. Okay. So let's get started with what I believe is an extremely important topic of managing stress. And it's extremely important in the current times, and it's also always been important, right? Throughout, I'm assuming, the history of people. This is a topic that's always been excited. And I want to give you a little bit of a backstory of this particular topic, right? Just for you to kind of understand it. Every time we put, as Work Better Club, we put a certain trainer or facilitator in front of you, or certain content in front of you, we tend to do a lot of research on that particular topic, and we put each and every facilitator. Most of these facilitators have worked with us for years, but we also make them do mock sessions with our people to kind of assess them and to really see what they're saying. So we just don't put somebody in front of you. There's a lot of auditing that happens before that. So when we were looking at the subject of stress, and when we ran these kind of mock sessions with a lot of our trainers, honestly, we weren't happy with what was coming out of those sessions, because a lot of what was coming out was, in my opinion, extremely tactical in nature, and important stuff, no doubt, and even that has a space. But we really wanted to kind of help you understand the topic of stress from its very core, right? And that's why this session, we've called it a paradigm shift in the way you think about the entire topic of stress management. And I'm hoping that by the end of this particular session, you actually feel that paradigm shift in the way you actually think about everything connected to your work and connected to the topic of stress, right? So that's my hope during this time. These are some of the ground rules. Most of y'all are aware of these things. I think the two, y'all can quickly read them, the two important kind of rules. Number one, if when I want some answers, please use the chat box for it. And when you want to ask some questions, please put those questions in the question and answer section, because that's the only place from which I'm going to take questions, whatever questions are there in the Q&A box and not in the chat box, right? So these are the two things that will happen. At the end of the session, we have an assessment link that is going to be sent for this particular program. It's going to be a very simple assessment, but wait back for that, because the minute you get that 70% or more in that, you're going to automatically get a certificate in your name for attending this particular class, right? So these are just some of the ground rules and instructions around this thing. Now, I'd like to, on the subject of stress management, start with this this disclaimer in a way, where stress can be a severe health hazard, and in extreme cases, it could also lead to death. So this is an important topic that we're speaking about. While what we're going to discuss in today's masterclass is shows positive effect, these are stuff which is guidance based, right? So if any of y'all are facing some very like situations where you feel that your stress is totally out of control, you need to seek a medical practitioner, right? So that's what you need to do if you think that your stress levels are totally out of control. And because this session is going to be a guidance, so I really want you all to read this particular disclaimer slide very, very well, so that you know what we're talking about. And there is a place for medical professionals to come in and take care of stress and mental health related issues. And this program is going to serve more as a guidance for each one of you all, right? Now, when you look at the subject of stress broadly, there are two things which are there in it. So number one is reduce your stress over the wrong and insignificant things, right? Reduce or stop stress over these things. And the second part of this whole subject of stress management is, when you get stressed out, how do you deal with that particular thing, right? So in a way, the first part is, how do you change the way you think so that you can avoid a lot of stress, or you can reduce a lot of stress to start with. And the second one, there are still going to be situations where you're going to feel very, very stressed. Then how do you go about dealing with it? Today's session, which we're going to do, is going to focus on this area. Okay, we're going to focus on how do you reduce your tendency to stress over the wrong, insignificant things. And in subsequent classes, we are going to take up this particular area, right, as we go along, because this subject is a very big subject. So then we're going to take this area, right? So I just want to bring your attention to the fact that this is what we're talking about today, and not this part, although this part is going to be taken up subsequently. Right now, what I mean by subsequently is we have lots of other kind of sessions on this particular topic. So we have a session on work-life balance, which is extremely important. We have another stress management session, which is called strategies and tools, which is dealing with the second part. When you get stressed, what do you need to do about it? And we have another session which is called building resilience, which is in the broad domain of stress management, right? So we have multiple topics for you to kind of deal with this particular really important issue that has a big impact on people's lives, right? Now, as with all the topics, let's try to start with what the definition is of stress. And I want each one of you all to take a moment and really read this slide. Just read it to yourself, right? And again, I hope all of you all sitting, wherever you all are sitting, we have 35 odd people that have joined today. I hope all of you all have your notepad and your pen in your hand, okay? Because I'm hoping that you're going to make a lot of notes from this particular session, right? So if you don't have your notepad, grab it very quickly right now. Grab a pen quickly, because this is, like I keep saying, this is not a session of entertainment. If you're taking the time on a Sunday morning to attend something, you may as well extract the full value out of it, right? So that's what I want. And unless you're a good note keeper, that's not going to happen. Okay, so let's look at what is stress. So stress is the psychological and physical reaction to various demands of life. It's the feeling of not being able to cope with a certain event. Okay, so I think all of us know what this means, but if you had to put it down as a definition, this was what the definition would be, right? The psychological, physical reaction to various demands of life, that feeling that you get of not being able to cope with a certain situation. Now, this is a very important point, okay? A small amount of stress can be good and also motivating. It can motivate you to perform well. However, when stress becomes a chronic condition, right, you need to kind of step into to kind of control it in some way, right? So when any task is assigned to you, right, like this particular subject of stress management, when we had to put this particular presentation together, I wouldn't call it stress, but there was a certain amount of kind of concern about doing it well, right? A certain kind of drive of doing it well. We were constantly thinking about doing it well, right? So it was stress, but stress in a good way, that led us in a way to put what we thought was a good presentation together. But if you keep feeling stressed all the time about everything, and if you keep feeling a lot of stress around stuff, that is where the problem is, right? So the problem is never a little bit of stress. The way I often kind of communicate this point to people is to say that it's okay if you're feeling stressed, as long as it doesn't consume you totally, right? As long as it doesn't weigh you down totally. So feeling it is very different from letting it consume you. And I think this particular session is going to talk about that, right? How do you not let stress really consume you in totality, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. Okay. Now, understand, this is a very interesting subject. So you guys really need to pay attention to get what we're discussing here, right? Now, there are two kinds of stress. So one kind of stress is chronic or ongoing state of stress that people are in, right? Where like they're feeling that stress like all the time, right? Throughout the day, over a long period of time, they're just constantly feeling stress. So you have, that is one kind of stress. And the other kind of stress is event-based stress, right? Now, what is event-based stress? Event-based stress could be about if you're going, say, for an appraisal, right? And then you feel really nervous around that particular event that is going to happen, which is an appraisal. You could be going for a interview. It could be a job interview or a college interview or a group discussion. And then you're feeling a certain amount of stress connected to that. It could be a birthday party that you're organizing, right? And you're feeling a certain amount of stress about that particular event. So this is the first one, is that ongoing kind of where you're feeling it constantly, you're feeling stressed. And the other one is where it is based on a certain event, right? So it's important for us to know in a way to how to deal with both of these kind of stresses. Okay. Now, the first kind of question I have for you, and I want you to put your answers in the chat box. Let's make this session as interactive as possible, right? The more we make it interactive, the better it's going to be for us when you actually think about these things and put your thoughts across, right? So this is my question to you. What, according to you, are some of the short-term and long-term effects of stress, right? So I want each one of you all to put 3 to 5 points in the chat box. Okay, come on, go for it, guys. Yeah, guys, as far as possible, put all your 3 points and then press enter, right? So don't just put one point. Put all your points, then press enter. So I can read all the points at once that one person sends. Okay, so Aditya has some very, very nice points. Aditya says short term, like fatigue, loss of confidence, irrational behavior. Govinda Raju says health problems. Yes, Palab Bose says short term could be sleeplessness, anger. Yeah, Debashi says anxiety, irritation, low confidence. Yeah, mental disturbance, less productivity. Satish Kumar says low performance, change in health condition. Sanjay Banerjee says less productive, lose confidence, mental issues. Yeah. Tanmay says panic feeling, exhausted, reactions weirdly, while long-term health problem, burnout. Akanksha says insomnia. Amazing. Some good answers. Come on, go for it, guys. Everybody, put your thoughts together, put your mind together, and tell me what are those long and short-term impacts. Sairaj has got some great points. Emotionally drains you out, makes you take decisions out of desperation. That's a very good point. Makes you doubt your ability, right? Manish says difficulty to focus, effect on family and work, socially disconnect. Short term, Sabyasachi says chest pain, fatigue, headache. I think these are some phenomenal points. Thank you very much. Well done, right? Keep participating like that. So we're all moving together on this particular subject. So I think all of what you have said is right. I'm just trying to summarize these points in this particular slides, right? So if you are living with high levels of stress, you're putting your entire well-being at risk. Stress wreaks havoc on your emotional equilibrium and as well as your physical health, right? So all the things that you mentioned, this is just a summary of that. When you have mental health problems, you have depression, anxiety, personality disorder, all the things that you spoke about, right? Heart disease, high blood pressure, all of these things happen. I think so. These are all the health related problems that I think all of you all have spoken of. I think these are important points too, right? It narrows your ability to think clearly, function effectively, and enjoy life, right? It really hampers with that if you're going to be stressed out, both in a way which is chronic and event based, right? Both things will impact that. And also when you are stressed, this is another truth that a lot of people kind of don't tell you, right? When you're stressed all the time, you're not a pleasure to be around, right? People may tolerate you for short periods of time. If they don't have a choice, they'll tolerate you, but wonder why they're tolerating you. if you're going to be stressed all the time. And when you're stressed all the time, you also end up saying stuff to other people that you don't mean. You end up doing stuff to other people that you don't mean. And then that kind of breaks or hampers your relationships with people, which often you can't repair, right, from that particular place, which then leads to more stress, right? Because you're stressed so that you said something or you did something, and then that particular person now is pissed off with you, or you damage that relationship in some way, sometimes in the short term, long term, and that leads to more stress, and that you basically start going in this particular downward spiral when it comes to the topic of stress, right? That's what ends up happening. Now, I just want you all to quickly read this slide. I'm not going to go over this in too much of detail, but this is just for you to get an understanding, saying stress warning signs and symptoms. Quickly read this particular slide, and I'm not going to go through it too much, but I want to give you all the time in silence to go through it. Right? So I'm sure since all of us as human beings have been in situations of stress before, of different degrees, I'm sure all of us have felt this thing in some way or the other, right? So none of these things that have been put down here are really new feelings to you, because all of us as adults have been through this particular thing in some degree or the other, right? So these are kind of the signs and symptoms of stress, right? Now, look at the statistics on stress, right, in India and in the major economies on the planet, right? According to a study by Economic Times, 89% of the population in India say they are suffering from stress, right? And similar researches in the US also, the numbers are similar, right? They're around between an 85 and 90% when you look at different studies. But this is a crazy amount, right? So 85% of the Indian population that works says that they suffer from stress, right? In the US, you have 120,000 deaths that are happening. This is their statistic, that's happening every year because of stress. And then there are other kind of problems connected to stress that happen, right? 29% respondents report to started drinking, increase of drinking in alcohol. 16% have self-harmed, or 32% said that they had suicidal thoughts and feelings, right? So these are the kind of statistics on the topic of stress that are really worrying, right? That this is the way people are feeling. And that's why we're going to have 4 sessions on this particular topic of stress, this being the first one, right? Because we know how important this is for people's behavior. So the importance of managing stress is, of course, to have a more peaceful, healthier, and more productive life. The ultimate goal in a way of life is to be balanced. This is what we're trying to aim for through all our sessions, to ensure that you're in a balanced place, you're living a peaceful life, and you have the resilience, or in a way the power, to hold up under pressure and meet challenges that come on, right? That's what we're trying. And what this basically means in simple words is, it's very important to deal with stress well, because if you are a living person, there are lots of problems that you're going to end up facing in your life, right? And a lot of those problems are going to be real problems, genuine problems, that if you don't know how to deal with the stress around those particular things, you can be in a lot of trouble in your life and at the workplace, right? If you don't deal with them well. So effective stress management is very important for your peace, it's very important for your health, it's very important for your productivity, all these three things. And what we're moving you towards is that ultimate goal of you being balanced, peaceful, and resilient towards all the nonsense that's going to keep happening in your life, right? So that's what these 4 sessions are going to be about. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. Now, in terms of this particular session, we are going to deal with the 3 P's of stress management. And this is how we've kind of put them down, right? How to deal with your stress with a change of perspective, how to deal with stress with a change of in the way you look at problems, and how you deal with stress basically dependent on how you look at people and people related issues, right? Because these are the three big things in my mind that you need to sort out in your brain if you need to deal with stress in a better way, right? Perspective, problems, and people. And for those of you who are good note makers, this is a time to write these three words down, right? That these are the three most important things. Okay, so let's start with perspective around stuff. So this is what I keep telling people all the time, okay? Which is that the world has been around. I don't know whether you know this, but the world has been around for 4.6 billion years. Okay, these are all the zeros that are there. The world has been around for 4.6 billion years. So it's been around for a really long time. Okay. And fortunately or unfortunately for each and every one of us, although the world has been around for 4.6 billion years, each one of us is going to live on this particular planet for approximately 70 years, right? That's what we're going to live for. If you look at the average age across India, for that matter, it comes to around 67 to 70 is what they say is the average age for a person to live in India, right? So 4.6 years the world has been around. You are going to be here for literally a speck, right? A blink of an eyelid is what your life is going to be. It's just going to be an odd 70 years. And after that, after you're gone, you and me, both of us are gone from this particular planet, the world is estimated that is going to be around for another 7.5 billion years, right? So 4.5 billion years it's been around. We're going to be here for a mere 70 years. And then it's again going to be around for 7.5 years, right? And again, I keep telling people in these 70 years, right, possibly the first 10 years of your life, no, not 10, even more years of the life, you don't have much control over what you're doing, right? Because you're too young to make your own decisions. You're too young to really have good frameworks to think. I would not even say 10, probably 10 to 12 years or 15 years. So that is the case back then. Between 60 to 70, you could have certain problems that you have, right? During that, in terms of age related problems that you could have between 60 and 70. So when you look at it, you have a good 40 odd years in the middle here, right? So the first thing to keep in mind is that you have very little time on this particular planet. And if you are going to use that particular time to stress about small, insignificant things, that is a real waste of your time, and that is a real waste of your life, right? If you're going to stress about small, insignificant things, because the one thing that each and every one of us needs to realize is that life is too short to be stressing on the wrong things, right? And this is just the truth of the matter, right? That this is how you need to look at it. It's been around for a very long time, and it's going to be around for a very long time. You have a limited amount of time. So therefore, in that limited amount of time, you should aim at living your life in a peaceful, happy, and joyous ways. And if you're going to be constantly stressed out, you're not going to be able to do that and be a pain to yourself, and you're going to be a big pain to the people around you, right? Both these things are going to happen. And when you're in a constant state of stress, you are not going to be able to fulfill your potential in any way. You're not going to be able to do that if you're going to be in constant stress, right? You're not going to be able to fulfill your potential in people. If I asked any one of you all to be very honest and tell me, do you like to be constantly around a person that is stressed all the time, like is perpetually stressed about stuff? And I'm not talking about like being a little stressed about one or two issues, right? But somebody that's just always stressed out about stuff, they're never fun to be with, right? And they're never fun to be with. Like they start doing simple stupid things, right? If they're constantly stressed out, then they feel bad about everything that you say, right? If they're constantly stressed out, they're often losing their cool around stuff, right? And it becomes such a pain for you to deal with that. And so don't be that person, right? Because you need to know that life is just too short for that particular thing, right? To waste it that way. Now, the second thing around perspectives is look at the bigger picture on just about anything. It's very important for you not Of course, you're in a certain moment where you feel that particular problem is important, but really, is that particular problem important, or are you just don't have the right perspective on that particular thing, right? So a good way of asking yourself the question is to say that, will this problem be important in the long run? Will it matter in a month, a year? Is this really worth getting upset over? So this particular question is an absolutely critical question to keep asking yourself, that is this thing that I'm feeling stressed about right now, does this really matter in the long run, right? Will it matter in a month? Will it matter in the year? Because I find that people really stress out about absolutely stupid stuff that nobody cares about, but in their head somehow they make a big deal about something and they're stressed out about it, and it's not doing your health any good, it's not doing your career any good, it's not doing the people around you any good, right? So constantly, if you want to get a perspective, number one, know that you're here for a short time. Number two, when it comes to any issue that you're facing, ask yourself this particular question: will it matter in a month? Will it matter in the year? Will it matter in the long run? And the answer to that, more often than not, will be no, right? And if your answer is no, then focus your particular energy on something else, right? That's the way to kind of look at this particular thing. Now, this is another thing about stress. It's not about the circumstances that you're in, right? It's not the circumstances that you're in. And I find again this particular thing very interesting, right? Where the poor people are stressed out because they have financial problems, and they think that, well, if I had money, or if I were rich, if I had a lot of money, then I wouldn't be stressed. And for those of you who are smart enough or exposed enough, and if you meet rich people, then you go and meet them and you find, man, even they are stressed, right? So clearly the poor people or people without money had those money problems, and that caused stress to them, no doubt about it. But these rich people who have all the money on earth, even they seem to be very, very stressed, right? When you meet somebody that's not so successful professionally and has not done that well professionally, they seem to be stressed in terms of their lives. And when you meet somebody that's really a high flying person in the corporate world, or is doing really well for themselves, man, you think even they are absolutely stressed, right? You find people that are not married, they're in stress, then they get married and again they're in stress, right? So often when we're sitting on one side, we think that the grass is greener on some other side, right? And we believe that the reason why we're stressed is because we're not married, or the reason why we're stressed is because we're married. And it's actually none of those things, right? Because it's not, stress is not about the situation that you find yourself in. Stress is more about your ability to deal with stress is more about you living a life of wisdom, you living your life smartly, irrespective of which situation you find yourself in, right? Whether you're professionally unsuccessful or not professional, having the right perspective towards life, having the right framework towards life, that is going to help you. And do not think that just because your situation is going to change, if you're going to go from poor to rich, that is going to make you stress free. Absolutely not, right? If you don't know how to think well, if you don't have the right frameworks of thinking, even when you get to that place that where you want to, you will still be totally stressed out, you'll still have the same problems, right? And that's what I'm here to tell you. You need to change your framework of thinking. So I'm sure a lot of you all have heard of Anthony Robbins, right? He's one of the most renowned kind of authors and personal development trainers and coaches. And he has this quote, which I thought was so amazing. He says, success, and he means professional success. He says, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, right? And what he's trying to say is that, like a lot of people become really successful, but they're still stressed out, they still are constantly worried, they're still right in positions where they're doing detriment to their health. And he said that's the ultimate failure in a way, if you're not going to feel the right way even after achieving so much, right? So again, just to reiterate my point, it doesn't matter what situation you're in, because if you don't know how, if you don't have the right frameworks of thinking, irrespective of what situation you're in, you are going to be stressed out, right? And that's why that change of perspective is very, very important, right? If you have understood what I'm trying to say in this point one, please give me a big yes in the chat box so that I'm clear we're on the same page, at least in terms of understanding of this particular issue. Okay, good. Like I've mentioned earlier, please ensure that you're making notes. And number two, if you have any questions, please keep putting them in the Q&A. I'm not going to take them up right now, but I will take them up at the end of the session. But every time a question comes to your mind, please put it up here so that I can take it in a better fashion, right? Now, the second area, after having a different perspective on the way you're looking at your life and work, the second area is around how you look and deal with problems, right? Because your problems often are a big area of stress, and my whole take on this thing is that most of these problems, or what you think are problems, is again because you're not thinking about problems and this whole area in the right way, right? So let's try to understand the area of problems. Okay, now these are just some stats for you to kind of put into perspective as to what real problems are, right? And these are absolutely, when we were going through this, me and Arunima here, when we were going through this, it was really, it shook us to our core, right? Where 3 billion people on the planet, nearly half of the world's population is living in extreme poverty, right? Now that's a real problem that people have, where 3 billion people are living like this. 2.5 billion people lack access to improved sanitation, right? More than 35% of the world's population don't have this basic sanitation. Again, this is a real problem that people have. 15 million people still go to bed on an empty stomach every day. Like 1 out of 10 people don't get food to eat every day, right? 780 million people don't have access to good water. 264 million kids don't have access to basic education, right? And yet, if you look at the world today, the world has been at the best place ever, right? Where on each and every one of the parameters that you look at, the world is at a much better place than it was, right? Now, what's the point that I'm trying to make here? Understand, each and every one of y'all, if you want to live a stress-free life, understand the difference between real problems, serious problems, and not so serious problems, right? Now, what I mean by serious problems and not so serious problems, all the problems that I just showed you earlier, those are some really, really serious problems that the world is facing. And it's extremely important for each one of us to realize that, man, those are real problems. And what I think I have as problems aren't really real problems. Right now, when I tell this to a lot of people, and when I've told them this point to a lot of people, they say, oh, but what do I have to do if half the world's population is under poverty? How does that change my life? And I say, no, 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 no. That doesn't immediately change your life. I'm giving you that particular information so that you have a better way of looking at what real problems are. And then you will come to realize that a lot of things that you think in your brain are real problems are not really real problems, right? And you're stressing about the absolutely wrong stuff, right? Um, so again, coming back to the earlier point that we're making, do not worry about insignificant, stupid problems, right? That is the reason why I'm showing you these stats. Now, when I was putting down the list of problems that in my brain were real problems that both of us could face, because if you're attending this particular session, I don't think that you're going to be in a place where you don't have food to eat, right? Or you don't have access to kind of basic education, right? I don't think those are the problems. That's just for you to understand what grave problems the world is facing right now. But these are a few examples of serious problems that you and me could face at any point of time in our life, right? These are things that could happen to any one of us literally tomorrow, okay? Because these are things that are not under our control, right? So what is a really real problem if you or one of your loved ones, right, somebody in your family immediately is diagnosed with a deadly or a serious disease, right? Now that is a real problem. And when that problem happens, we need to save our stress. If you get stressed about a problem like that, it's totally just if you get stressed about a problem like that, right? The untimely or premature death of somebody that you love, right? That's again an absolutely real problem that a lot of people face. And again, I want to bring your attention to the fact that both you and me, any one of us could face this problem at any point of time in our life, right? A real serious problem is an accident that could happen, which is totally out of the blue, which is out of our control, right? And real serious problems for people, and these are just 4 examples of what really serious problems could be, right? And a really serious problem could be an unforeseen financial loss or unemployment where you can't really put together the basics for you and your family, right? So when you hear about a lot of the say farmer suicide and stuff like that, they're really faced with these grave problems where they don't know where to put the next square meal for themselves and their family on the table, right? So these are the absolute problems, and at least the first 3 any one of us can face at any point of time in our lives, right? You, if you've lived long enough, you know how uncertain life is, and these are the things that can happen in that particular life. So the way you need to look at your problems, at least the way I look at them, and that's the reason why I don't really feel stress at all, is and this is a very important point, so listen to it carefully. The way I look at this thing is, every day every day of my life that the first 3 or 4 of these problems don't happen, right, I consider myself absolutely lucky, right? On, I repeat, each and every one of the days that one of these 3 or 4 problems don't happen in my life, I consider myself absolutely lucky, absolutely blessed. And I feel totally grateful for the fact that these big problems have not happened in my life, right? I feel a sense of gratitude towards it every day, because I know so many people suffer from these particular problems that are there, and they're not there in my life. So then what happens is, when I have a constant feeling of gratitude that these problems have not happened in my life, and these problems which can happen in anybody's life have not happened in my life today, then when I'm looking at dealing with the other problems, the way I approach those particular problems is from a totally different perspective, or a totally different point of view is what I'm approaching those particular problems, right? Um, so yesterday I was having a discussion with our COO, right? And she was telling me a bunch of problems that we as a company were facing right now, right? Somebody quitting, or somebody has some demand, or something going wrong here. And especially in the corona situation, there are businesses are facing so many problems, right? They're facing, and the same thing is true with a lot of what's happening in our business. And when she ran me through that list of stuff, which were all real problems, none of them really consumed me in totality, because I'm like, listen, there are hundreds of other serious problems that are there all around the world that are happening, right? There are serious problems, and none of these 3 or 4 things have happened, right? You're not telling me about any of these things, right? So most of the other problems, we can find a way to deal with them, right? We can find a way to deal with them. There is no problem. My loved ones are safe and sound. I am safe and sound. We don't have any disease. None of us has been impacted by any premature death that has happened. And a lot of y'all could have gone through situations like those that are really stressful, right? And that is where you need to save your stress for, not in insignificant things like that, right? So then when she runs me through that list of problems that are there, I don't really feel that much. I'm like, okay, come on, let's deal with it, right? Let's be smart and let's deal with that issue, but let's not get consumed by that particular issue, right? So that's the first point is, know that there are, although the world is in the best place that it's been in at any point of time in human history, the world is at the best place that it's in today, at any point in human history, know that there are still many real problems that people face. So that's one thing. So get the perspective of saying those are real problems, and a lot of the things that we think are real problems are not real problems. The second point that I'm trying to make here is to say that any of us could face any of these issues that I've just put down at any point of time in our life. Every day that you don't face these particular issues, know that you are lucky not to face them, because if you have a child, right, if you have a child and your child has got no real health problems, I think I have a child, and that we should be grateful about that every day, because there are so many parents that have the real stress of seeing their children like with diseases which they can't get out of, right? And we don't have that particular thing. If you don't have that particular thing, learn to appreciate that particular thing, learn to be grateful for that particular thing. And unless you have that outlook on problems, you're always going to find a way to get stressed about small insignificant things, unless you look at problems from this point of view, right? um, I had a family member that was doing a business, right? And both it was in construction, right? And both him and his wife, that both were connected to me very closely. They would get stressed out about the sale of that particular project all the time, right? And I'm like, hello, listen, it's going to happen. It's not like you all don't have money to feed yourselves or feed the people around you, right? You all are taking so much of stress. And of course that project got sold and money was made on and everything happened, but they spent a good 2-3 years of their life constantly being stressed, in a lot of cases bickering with each other. And it was of no use. It was a total waste of those 2 to 3 years, because eventually everything fell in place. And this is what we keep doing. And thank God they didn't really sour their relationship in any bad way. But that's what happens when you don't have the right perspective towards problems that are there. Okay, now if you understood what I'm trying to say in these 2 points, please put a yes in your chat box. Even if you don't agree in totality, there could be people that don't agree with this. This is the kind of session where it's actually for a want of a better word, slightly philosophical in nature, because when you just talk about saying, okay, you know what, breathing techniques, of course, all those things we're going to teach you in subsequent classes, right? But if you don't have these central beliefs or philosophies right in terms of this issue, automatically you will find yourself stressed a lot. And if you have these foundational issues with the way you think about life, if you don't have the right perspective, if you don't look at problems in the right way, no amount of breathing techniques are going to help you out, right? No amount of breathing techniques are going to help you out then, if you don't get this thing right, right? Okay, a lot of people have said yes. Good. Yeah, I second you. Thank you if you second me. And again, I just want to be really respectful and say one thing. I don't expect all of you all to be in full agreement with me about anything, right? As far as this issues, what we're trying to do in this particular topic is to throw ideas at you, and throw ideas at you so that you can think about these ideas and then come to your own conclusions on how you need to do stuff, right? So that's what these sessions is about. It's not to tell you think exactly like this, do exactly like this. No, it's to throw you ideas that you can think about, you can mull over, you can discuss with people, and it gives you a fresh way of looking at stuff, even if you don't totally agree with them. So thank you very much for putting all those yeses. Thank you. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, now so this is something interesting which I put down, which is more in, we're calling it the stress continuum model, right? For you to understand different levels of stress and what we tend to do, right? So at these are your, in terms of problems, okay, these are your worst kind of problems, right? Which I just, the 3 or 4 things that I just spoke about, right? Which is disease, right? Death of someone, huge financial loss, like accidents that happen, right? These are the worst kind of problems that anybody can have, right? And it's unfortunate any of you all have happened. So this is your extreme level of problems. Now let's look at certain problems that are absolutely insignificant or stupid, but we still make a big deal about it, right? Like, what are these stupid, insignificant things that come on this end? Number one, right? How many likes you get on social media, right? Or what people are commenting on your social media when you put something up, right? Or did somebody make you put something up and somebody made a joke of it, and now you're feeling stressed about that. Bhai, ye problem hai yahan pe, yeah, wo problem nahi hai. Okay. Second thing, right? Insignificant problems. Um, have you seen people stressing out about birthday parties that they organize? You're organizing a birthday party, and you think that that birthday party is your entire world, and for 2 months before that birthday party you're absolutely stressing out about everything, and you're making life hell for yourself and for the people around you. Organizing a birthday party, man, who the hell cares, right? Because people are going to come, they're going to eat, and they're going to go, they're going to forget about it. Please don't stress about stupid stuff like organizing a birthday party, right? And look at it from the framework that we had thought of earlier, right? Which is, are people going to remember this 1 year down the line? Nobody cares about that, right? There's a very nice quote, that says, it's a very nice quote that says, in my 20s, I thought everybody was thinking about me. By the time I got to my 40s, I realized nobody was thinking about me. By the time I got to my 60s, I realized that most people were so busy thinking about themselves that they really never had the time to think about me, right? So although people may have some comments, it's not that they're really spending all their time thinking about you. People don't have enough time, nor do they care enough to constantly think about you, right? But something as, you're organizing a birthday party and you're treating it like it's the world's most important event and you're stressing out about it, come on, you have no idea of what the real problems are. Now, I'm not saying that if you're organizing a birthday party, don't plan around it, right? Of course, take the energy to plan around it. Of course, organize that particular birthday party well. Do all the right things that are required. But listen, if you have 6 dishes on the table and one of the dishes is not as good as you wanted, it's okay. Okay, it doesn't really matter, right? So these are your extreme levels of insignificant problems that people treat with they give a lot of energy to these particular problems. And my whole suggestion with you is stop doing that. Save your stress for these situations that are real situations, right? Real problematic situations. And then along this particular continuum, you will have a lot of different problems that will be there, right? So there will be the problems of, like, I don't want to put them in one area, but you would have problems like, you would have something like all the stuff in the middle, something like, breakups, right? Is something that is going to feel really hard, or divorces that are going to feel really tough. And those are important life problems. Here I spoke about accidents and untimely death, right? And what I meant by that is somebody going really premature, not somebody like passing away when they're 80 years old, right? If you expect them to live beyond that, it's because you have the false notions about how long people should live for, right? But still, when somebody passes away at whatever age, that is something that it's not a problem, but it's something that you would feel sad about if that happened, even after they lived a full life, right? Problems related to work, okay, which are okay problems. I wouldn't put them in really serious problems. But now, in terms of insignificant problems, let me give you another idea. Maybe it's not here. Social media, like a birthday party that you're organizing and one dish going wrong, you stressing about it, wrong. Other somewhere here would be stuff like, if you're making a presentation in office, right, and you are so stressed about it, and then after you make that particular presentation, it doesn't go well, you are consumed by that for another, I don't know how long, right? A presentation. Listen, man, okay, you made a presentation, it's important to do it well. It didn't go well, it is okay, right? In a years down the line, nobody's going to, people don't remember that you made a presentation. Even half a day after you made a presentation, they don't remember what you said, right? Let alone 1 year after that, is not going to make any impact. So again, we're busy stressing about these wrong things. So if I look at these problem kind of continuum, these are the problem on this end, insignificant problems are here, and you'll have all the others somewhere in the middle. But like I said, these are the problems that you need to be most concerned about, and every day of your life that you don't have those problems, be very, very grateful for that particular thing, right? Yeah, so I think I've covered each one of these things. Now, the next thing is, I was advised not to put this particular slide in, right? Because it almost sounds very rude and mean when I say this. There are enough of serious problems in life to deal with. Don't go about creating new ones for yourself. A lot of people are stressed out because they do stupid things. Okay, now there's no better way of putting it, right? Now let me give you an example of what stupid things are. Let's look at common problems people face. One big reason for people's stress is money, right? Now, if you actually think of money related problems, you will realize that, and how people create them for themselves, right? So number one, if you need a certain amount of money, ensure that you work at it. Okay, And it's not just hard work, like I've discussed in previous sessions. It's not just about doing hard work. Hard work is just one component of it, but you also need to do stuff like actually developing your competence or developing your capability so that you can make more money, right? Work at it so that you can make more money. And the second thing which comes to money related problems is how much you're spending. Okay, and are you spending it in the right way? Now if you are not going to have money and then you're going to buy an expensive car, right, where you don't have money, and if you buy an expensive car, and why are you buying this particular expensive car? Because everybody in your family or friends are buying car, but you know that you possibly are really stretching yourself to buy this particular car, and then you do it for the wrong reasons. You do it for the reason because your friends and families want you to buy a car, or they have a car now, but your reality is totally different. And then you go about buying your car, and now you have money problems and stress. Listen, this was a problem that not the world created for you. This was a problem that you created for yourself. And why? Because you bothered, your decision making was wrong, and you bothered too much about what family, friends, and all these people said. So you took the wrong decision that keeps putting you under stress then. And people do this all the time, right? People say, I ask people, why are you stressed? And they'll say, oh, you know, I bought this house and my EMI is so big, and now I don't have any money for this and that, and now my wife wants this. I said, who told you to take such? They say, no, everybody was doing it, so I'm doing it. I'm like, listen, if you're going to use that particular logic and not think stuff through, you're going to keep putting yourself into serious trouble, right? In terms of doing it, right? And that's exactly what you don't want to do. Okay, I'll give you another example of this. Now this money is like a slightly bigger problem, right? But I had a person that was very, very, very stressed out. So then I'm like, okay, why are you very stressed out? They say long hours. I say, how many hours do you work? Yeah, I work for 8 hours. I'm like, that's not really long. That's what everybody. No, but I have to travel to work for 4 hours. I live very, very far away from my workplace. Right now, this was a bachelor. So I said, why are you living far away from your workplace? No, I need to save money. Okay, so to save some $5,000 a month, or very little like money in his context in terms of what he was making, he was putting himself under the stress of like traveling for 4 hours a day in Bombay, where he could have easily moved his particular location because he was living on rent anyway. He could have easily moved his location and brought these 4 hours to 30 minutes, right? And his life could have been much more better, but he was creating a new problem for himself, which is absolutely not required, right? And we keep doing this in multiple areas of our life, right? I'll give you a third example. A lot of y'all are not going to really like this thing, and I've been warned about this thing, because there's a very nice quote that says, the truth will set you free, but first it may piss you off, right? So when I'm giving a lot of these examples, a lot of people are going to say that, what is he talking, right? Why is he being so extra smart? And I'm not really being extra smart. I'm just laying things out for you, which are just realities. Okay. I'll lay another reality. Again, people are going to hate this particular example, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? I had a friend who was of a certain age, right? And then in his mind, because he was a certain age, now he's like, okay, now I need to get married, right? Because he had reached that certain age. And then he met some girl, arranged marriage situation. This is not a comment on whether arranged marriages are right or love marriages. This is not a comment on that. He met somebody and he said, no, it's age. Everybody around me is getting married. Even I need to get married. There's so much of pressure. And then he jumped into marriage. And then for the next, of course, that person and him weren't compatible with each other at all. In any sense of the word, weren't compatible. He didn't spend any time, but he jumped into it because of some pressure that was there. And then he spent the next 3 or 4 years of his life being stressed about that particular issue, in spite of all of us telling that person that, listen, okay, relationships can always go wrong, but before you get married in today's world, because we're not living in the same world that was there 50 years back, right, where people's expectations were different and marriages therefore lasted much longer. So people's expectations today are different, right? And so today, if you're going to get into some kind of companionship or marriage or whatever it is, you need to really get to know the person better, because you're not living in your parents' generation, fortunately or unfortunately, right? No time to do that. Then spend the next 3 to 4 years of your life being absolutely stressed. Another 2 to 3 years after the life through the divorce proceedings and all these things. So spend out of those valuable 40 years in the middle, that you have, 40 years, that's it, 70 years in all, 40 years there. Out of that, he spent a valuable 6 to 7 years of his life in constant stress, right? Why? Because always remember, there are enough of problems in your life already. Don't go about creating new ones by doing stupid things, right? And what usually all of us tend to do stupid things because we come under pressure from ourselves and the people around us. We keep coming under that particular pressure, and therefore we do these particular stupid things, and then they come to impact our quality of life. And when your quality of life gets impacted, again your parents' quality of life gets impacted, right? So if I take the example of that friend of mine, right, he thought, oh, I am doing my parents a favor by doing this thing. They're getting so stressed that, oh, I've reached a certain age and I'm not. They're getting stressed, and then they caused more stress for themselves and their parents and the girl and her family and all the people involved in this particular thing. Why? Because you didn't do the right thing. You were too concerned about what other people and that pressure that you could face, and you could not be assertive about that particular thing and take your own decisions, right? So when you, even if you look at money, even if you look at each one of these things, you will find that a lot of the reasons why we're stressed is because we create these problems for ourselves, right? Give me a big yes if you agree that so many of our problems that we create is because of unable to handle, in a way, pressure that comes from the people around us, right? And that's why we do stupid things, and then that causes more stress for both you and them. So if you have, if you think that that makes sense, give me a big yes if you think that makes sense, right? Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, thank you for the participation. Yogesh, yes, I will absolutely give you. Please, can you give an example of how to handle sudden job loss? Yeah, Yogesh, I will definitely get. Okay, so if you let's take up that problem right now, right? Of how does somebody deal with sudden job loss? So it's a question that has come up, but it's something which is important in the context of what we're discussing right here. So I think one of the things that when it comes to when it comes to jobs and finances, in my experience of dealing with literally lakhs of people in the 12 years that I've gone to every part of the country to train people, is if you're talking about financial pressure or loss, okay, that happens due to, say, a job loss, a lot of it is because people have almost zero literacy on finances, right? And you don't even need to be a real mathematical wizard or anything of that sort as far as your finances are concerned, right? Even if you spend 1 or 2 days today on the internet just reading and watching more videos around financial literacy, in a way, that will give you enough to understand what are you supposed to do if you earn 1,000 rupees every day, right? How much are you supposed to save? How are you supposed to invest? How are you supposed to do a lot of those things that you require to do on a day-to-day basis, right? Because there's a very nice quote that says, a leader is one that recognizes a problem before it becomes an emergency, right? I repeat that. A leader is one that recognizes a problem before it becomes an emergency. And a lot of us in our personal lives as well, we wait for stuff to become emergencies and we don't recognize it when we're at the problem stages. So if you don't want to be stressed out, what's very important for you, at least in your work and financial place, to start planning this bit better. And this planning comes from getting yourself an education on how to plan your finances, where to invest, what you do, so on and so forth, right? In order to do that particular thing. And if you do that thing, even if you then have job loss, you're not in that stressful a situation as you would be if you've not planned your finances well, if you've not done enough of your savings that you could do. Then if you have a job loss, you're in a lot more stressful situation. But if you've done all that planning well, even if you lose your job, you could have some psychological pressure, but you know that your basics are really taken care of. And that's what I think each and every one of y'all should do right now. Since you asked this question, and this is again a lot to do with work, and it's got a lot to do with like money stress that people have. Okay, I had another friend, okay, somebody that lived in Bombay, and this friend called me one day, and And again, I'm sharing this thing because this is how people create stress for themselves very, very easily, right? So I had a friend that came to me, and she said, you know what, there is this amazing investment offer. There is my mom's friend that has come to her with an amazing investment offer, and she said, I think you should invest in it too. So I said, okay, what is this offer? I want to find out, right? I don't mind making money if there's money to be made. And she said there is this under construction project that is there in some part of Bombay, where the typical, say, rate for that particular area is, say, rupees 1,000 per square foot. And this is just an example, rupees 1,000 per square foot. And this particular guy is giving us an offer of rupees 250 per square foot. Right? It's unbelievable that that is what they're going to give us. It's unbelievable. It's an amazing money making opportunity. So as soon as this offer came to them, what set in their head is greed, right? This is what set in, greed. I'm going to make a lot of money very, very easily, right? That's what they thought. Man, it's an easy way of making money. And as soon as she told me this particular thing, I'm like, listen, this does not make sense, because why would anybody give it to you at 250 bucks? No, it's slightly, there's a slight problem with that particular project, but he's told us that it's going to get sorted. So if we invest now, we'll get it. But if we invest in 1 month, like stuff like that, at 250 bucks versus 750. So there was clearly something kind of murky in this particular thing. And now what these people did, because they didn't educate themselves financially, they didn't do their research well, they just wanted to believe what they wanted to believe. They wanted to make a quick buck. They wanted to be greedy, all these things. They took a lot of their money and they put it in this particular thing, right? I, of course, wouldn't do something that's stupid, but that's what they did. They put their money in this particular thing, a whole chunk of their money. Okay, I don't need to tell you, right, what happened after that if I'm sharing this particular example, right? 1 month down the line, 2 months down the line, he said, oh, that total project fell apart, this happened, that happened. They're like, can we get our money back? No, this happened, that. We'll get our money back in 5 years. And some nonsense like that just to push it forward. Now, they took all the effort to make that money, and then through one stupid decision out of being greedy, thinking that if I have a flat, everybody will look at me in the right way, made the wrong decision there and kept putting themselves in stress. So I want to repeat this particular thing. There are enough of real problems in your life that could happen to you and the people close to you. Please do not go about creating new ones for yourself. Okay, and that typically happens because we don't think stuff through, we don't seek out counsel, we don't educate ourselves, we fall prey to pressure from people, we fall prey to greed, we fall prey to get rich easy kind of schemes, and none of them really work, right, at any point of time. And the only people that do that is people that don't think it through. Okay, I've taken a lot of effort to try to make this point clear. I really hope that people have understood this point, because it's a very important point. Right now, my third thing around problems is, don't have unrealistic expectations. Okay, and what does this particular point mean? Problems, setbacks, failures, disappointments are a part and parcel of life. Until you genuinely go about accepting this particular thought that disappointments, failures, setbacks is a part of life, right? Please don't have unrealistic expectations in your life that these things are not going to happen to me, right? A lot of people think that, oh, you know what, if I keep visualizing, if I keep being positive, none of these things should happen to me. No, my friend, if you're going to try to do anything in your life, and even if you're not going to try to do anything in your life, these are things that are going to come to you. Okay, whether you like it or not, they are a part and parcel of life, right? So when that thing happens, know that, okay, right, the problem typically with people is that they don't expect these problems to happen to them, and they think they can pray these problems away. And what you need to be, and which is something which you all should read up on more, which is called the Stockdale paradox, right? It's a very interesting concept. Please make a note of this and read it a little more, which is called the Stockdale paradox, which is supposed to be one of the strongest ways of thinking. And what the Stockdale paradox means is, when you are faced with any kind of problems, setbacks, failures, or disappointments, learn to, in a way, accept that particular situation, right? Don't try to run away from that particular situation. Accept that particular situation, that this is my reality as of now, right? And when you have that particular reality, say that, although this is my reality, I will never lose my hope that things will get better and I will make things better, right? So that's the way you need to go about thinking. So yes, this is my reality, and my current reality is in a way problematic. It is disappointing, but I need to get to a space where I need to have that hope that eventually, in the end, I will prevail, right? In the end, things will be right. So accepting your reality and yet being hopeful that things will get better, that's a good framework of thinking, and that's the right way to look at stuff. And that's what the Stockdale paradox basically means, right? Of being able to do that. Now, there's another very, very interesting point here. Learn from them. Learn from the problems, learn from the failures, learn from the disappointments. Please extract that particular learning from them, but don't spend 5 hours on a 5-minute problem. If you're a good note maker, this is a good line to keep in mind. Don't spend 5 hours on a 5-minute problem, right? um, Let me share this example of my colleague Arunima here, right? So a couple of weeks back, there was she puts all of this content together, and as you've seen, she does a brilliant job with it. And she's really passionate about this, and she really hopes that everything goes as per the plan. And a couple of weeks back, when we were doing this session, I think while doing it in a few places, when the trainer was talking about stuff, there was a bit of an internet problem because it was raining very heavily. Everybody's working from home. Everybody's working on the same connection. Little bit. So in a couple of places, people and even she couldn't really hear what the trainer was saying, right? And then, like, after half an hour after that happened, I was speaking to her, and she seemed very concerned about that particular thing. And my whole point to her was that, yeah, it's important. Yeah, that shouldn't happen, but is that under your control? No, it's not under your control, right? It's not under anybody's control. So this is a problem, but how much time should you be spending on thinking or being concerned about that problem? And I was like, 5 minutes. You need to be like, man, this was a problem. Is there anything I can do to really rectify it? And if your answer is no, I couldn't have done anything to rectify it, cool, keep it there and move on to the next thing. Do not spend a whole lot of time. Don't spend 5 hours on a 5-minute problem, right? Learn from that particular thing and move on very, very quickly from it, right? Now, let me share another thing here. Okay, don't have unrealistic and expectations. Okay, now a lot of y'all may think at this point of time that I'm being negative about something. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be realistic so that you can take your problems in a realistic way, and that'll help you. And this is based on data more than anything else, right? A lot of people come and ask me about, say, starting new businesses, right? And typically what I tell them, since I've been an entrepreneur myself, I tell them that 8 or 9 out of 10 businesses started. Okay, listen again. 8 or 9 out of 10 businesses started. Just statistics. This is like almost all around the world, are likely to fail, right? Are likely to shut down. Okay, now when you look at statistics, you will realize that. Now, if you are going to get into business, if you are going to say want to start something or and you don't know that at least 8 out of 10 businesses are likely to fail, you need to be real about that. And you say, okay, the chances of my thing succeeding are 2%, but I still want to do it anyway because I've accepted the reality of what the statistics tell me. I still want to do it. So if your business then fails, okay, you will feel bad about it. You will feel a sense of disappointment around it. There is no doubt that you will feel that particular thing. But at least it's based on knowing that, okay, I knew this particular reality. A lot of people that start businesses and they fail, they literally seem shocked that it failed, right? That how did this happen to me? Why is the world against me? I'm like, no, the universe is not against you or anything of that sort. It's just very tough to start something new, right? And the chances of it succeeding are 8 out of 10 times it will fail. Be aware of that particular reality, know that in your mind, and then if you still want to do it, please go and still do it, right? I had a cousin of mine that was into acting, right? And I would share this with him all the time, right? I said, a lot of people in this field of showbiz, in acting, and all these people are they say they're very, very stressed. And the reason why a lot of them are stressed, at least both people are stressed, like I said earlier, right? Even the really successful people seem like they're stressed. Even the strugglers that are trying to get into are stressed. And I was like, the problem with most people is they have the fake expectation of what's going to happen, because in literally lakhs of people that try to become heroes, there is only one person or three people that become the Shah Rukh Khan, Akshay Kumars, and all these people, right? But if you're going to say, no, I'm going to be that person, It's good. You can say that, oh, I'm being optimistic there, but that's not being optimistic. A good way. And then what happens is we hear of that one Karthik Aryan that actually becomes a hero, and we think that, okay, you know what, he became a hero, why can't I? We need to be fully aware that there are thousands of people that we don't know that have failed miserably at that particular thing, right? So if you're going to get into acting, know this reality that is very, very tough, and then get into it, right? And that will kind of manage your stress levels in a much better way, because you'll be in a better headspace around it. Right now, when you face a setback or think, this is the third point, right? When you face a setback or think about what you can do to rectify it, once you have an answer, take action. Right now, that's very, very important. A lot of people, when they're stressed out, spend a lot of time in that particular area where they're stressed, right? That's where they spend a lot of time. And what you're supposed to do, you know that, okay, this particular thing was a setback, this thing was a failure, no doubt about it. What are the learnings from that particular thing? Then you say 1, 2, 3, 4, these are the learnings. Now what is the action that I can take to rectify this, and actually go about getting into the action that is required for that? Because what happens again in a lot of cases is people spend too much of time in that area of stress, and what you need to do is quickly, when something happens, go into what are my areas of improvement, and then go into what is the action that I can take. Now just to give you an example, if you are going to give a presentation, right, an important interview or a presentation, let's take an interview for that matter, right, and do all the preparation that you need to, right, prepare as well as you can. Now when you go for that particular interview, there is every chance that you may screw it up, right? Now once you screw that interview up, because it can happen, you don't know what questions are going to come up, right? They could ask you anything. When you screw that interview up, it's okay to feel bad. It's natural to feel bad, and you should feel bad about it. If you don't feel bad about it, again, there's something wrong with you. But do not spend days feeling bad about it, right, and being consumed by that particular stress connected to it. Feel bad about it, like really, you know, you may spend 1 hour, 2 hours just like saying that, okay, this was a really important interview for me, I've screwed it up. But then quickly move into saying, what are the 4 or 5 action points, what are my 4 or 5 learnings to that, right? And then quickly move into it. Now let me get into action on trying to improve or rectify these particular areas. So then what happens is you in a way leave that stress behind and you get into action, and that is something that really helps in terms of your ability to manage stress, right? So yeah, so that's an important one as well. Now I'd like to end this particular section with this thought. Okay, this is called the serenity prayer, which is a beautiful kind of prayer, which says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Right? I think this is such a powerful line. I'll read it again for you. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. Because there are some things in your life that are totally out of your control, right? Try to recognize what those things are. You can do nothing about this. It's useless getting stressed about it. There are some things which are in your control. We've already discussed that, right? In your control. So something like a interview, right? Or something like a presentation falls somewhere in between, right? Of these two things. There are a lot of things about that interview are in your control, but there's also an external factor that is connected to it, right? That's where in the middle is somewhere an interview will fall, right? So do whatever is there in your control. This is not something that you can change in any way, right? That's not something that you can do. Do your best. If things fail, look at all the learnings that are there, make a note of all those learnings, and move into action immediately on those things. Okay, now we have 15 minutes left, then we're going to get into Q&A after class. Okay, and the third main reason, so wrong perspectives was the first one, which leads to stress. Not realizing how short life is. I'm just doing a recap. Not realizing how short life is. Not asking yourself the question constantly, saying that, will this thing really impact me over a long period of time, or am I just getting stressed about the wrong things, right? So knowing that you have a short time here, knowing that a lot of things don't really have a big impact in the long term, right? Being aware of that. The second big point that we spoke, where we spend a lot of time on, is problems. Know what real problems are. There are enough of real problems on earth. Look at those real problems and feel grateful and feel lucky that you're not facing those particular problems. Number two, the 4 or 5 real problems of your particular life can come to hit you at any point in your life. Every minute of every day that you don't have those particular problems, learn to be grateful about it. Learn to be at peace that you don't have that particular thing, because when they happen, those are good reasons to get stressed. Number 3 point that we were making, do not get stressed about insignificant stuff, because we spend too much on time on getting stressed about insignificant stuff, which becomes a problem for both us, our health, and the people around us. The next thing that we discussed under problems, I'm just doing a recap. The next thing that we discussed under problems was saying problems are going to be a part and parcel of your life, right? Setbacks are going to be a part and parcel of your life. You have no choice around that. Be realistic that they're going to happen. And when they happen to you, ensure that you don't give a 5-minute problem 5 hours, right, of stress. Feel bad for 5 minutes and then move on from that particular situation and derive the learnings out of that and move into action as quickly as possible. Because the minute you move into action, there is a whole science behind it. The stress, you stop feeling lesser stress because you already moved in a positive direction in that particular thing, right? So if Yogesh had asked me earlier, because the current reality, when we speak to so many people across the country today, because of COVID, there is job loss, there are salary cuts. We find that almost in every. So if you've lost a job, right, of course, feel bad about it. But after you feel bad about it, look at what all the learnings are from that particular situation, if there are any, right? What are the things that possibly you did wrong? How could you have been more valuable to your company? Why did the company decide to let go of you and not somebody else, right? A lot of those questions that are really harsh questions to ask yourself, but see if there are any learnings there, right? And then you need to think, okay, now that I've lost my job, what is the best way to go about looking for it? How do I really take all the effort and quickly move all your energy towards finding the next one? Although it's going to be difficult to do that at that point of time, but move all your energies towards that, while keeping in mind that in this situation, finding a new job is going to be difficult. But yet you're going to keep the stocktail paradox in mind, right? Where however hopeless a situation will be, however tough a situation will be, you will know that in the end you will prevail if you put in the right kind of action and efforts, right? So that's just a recap before we come to our 4th point, right? Now, important thing. The other thing that stresses us out is people, right? That is what stresses us out. Okay. And we often get stressed out about what others say to us or how they behave with us, right? These are good reasons to get stressed. I repeat, we often get stressed out about what people say to us or how they behave with us. And these are the 2 points which, of course, you can read. Don't be too sensitive. Don't try to overanalyze situation and create problems where there are none. And everybody is going through their own troubles. Give them the benefit of doubt. Know what to forgive and ignore. Right? Now, listen very carefully to this point. Right? I often tell people, if somebody is getting angry at you, very often they're not angry at you. They're angry at themselves for something, and you are just a trigger for them to let it out on you, because maybe you're somebody who's close to them, right? I repeat this. Very often when people are angry with you, they're not angry with you, they're angry with themselves. And the other person is just a trigger for them to let their anger out, right? Now, is it the right kind of behavior? Because that person who's angry is clearly stressed, and that's what this whole session is about, right? How don't be that person that's losing their cool all the time. Don't be that person that's irritated all the time. And that comes from stress. Now, if you have people near and dear you that say something to you which is out of turn and inappropriate in a way, right? Or, they behave in a way which is slightly not to your pleasure, be kind enough to know that each and every person is going through their own troubles, right? Each and every person is going through their own troubles. Each and every person has their own battles that they are fighting. So when that happens to you, if you want to live a more peaceful life, learn how to forgive, right? And this may sound philosophical, but it's not. It's for your own mental well-being, right? Learn how to forgive very, very quickly. Learn how to not hold grudges for a very, very long time. There's a very nice quote that said, holding a grudge against somebody is like trying to pick a hot piece of coal to throw on somebody else, right? So if you're going to pick a hot piece of coal to throw on somebody else, you may hurt him, but your hand is also going to get hurt in the bargain, right? So that is what tends to happen to people. So if you need to have people from time to time are going to behave with you in ways that you are going to say stuff to you that you're not going to like. They're going to crack jokes sometime that you're not going to like. They're going to pull your leg in a way that you don't like, or they're going to actually get angry with you for something and you may not like it. but know that it's often because they are stressed themselves that they're doing it. So get very good at forgiving people in a way, right? Number two, there's a very nice quote that says, wisdom is knowing what to ignore. I love this particular line. Wisdom is knowing what to ignore. And that's what the smartest people do, right? If somebody says something out of place, they just ignore it. They just give them, I love this line. I've always loved this line. They give people the benefit of doubt, saying, hoga yaar, usko bhi tension hoga, theek hai, no problem. Okay, now, here guys, you have to understand that I'm not talking about extreme situations, right? If you're in a marriage and it's some your spouse is physically abusing you, I don't mean forgive and ignore and stuff. I'm not talking about extreme situations like that, right? I'm just talking your day-to-day interaction. Somebody gets upset over something, so on and so forth. You're like, okay, you know what, he'll be stressed about his own stuff, that's why he's removing this thing on me. So I'm not going to let myself get so stressed about this myself because he said or behaved in a certain way. And the more you do that, the better mental space you will be in. And very often, if you see, the biggest reason why problems happen between two people is one person says something, then that other person gets highly offended by it, and he's too sensitive, then he starts shouting, and then both of them are shouting towards it, and that really blows up into a real problem. But often, if one person says something which is out of place and you give that person the benefit of doubt, right? You say, it's okay, right? It's okay. He must be stressed as well. Let me just be. And you trying to ignore it, that's okay. However, and again, if you want to address that particular issue with that other person, know that the right time to do it is not when they're upset, right? So if you and your brother, or you and your partner, or any one of them, somebody gets upset, learn to ignore it for them. Be very cool, calm, and collected in the moment. When that person is in a better space, you can possibly bring that issue up to him then, of saying that, listen, you know what, at that point of time you got upset, I didn't really like it, but I didn't want to bring it up then because you were too agitated, upset. So I'm just letting you that I didn't really like it, because sometimes people don't have the knowledge that you may not like a certain thing, right? So you can bring it up to them honestly when they're in a better state of mind, and not at that point of time, right? If that is something that's happening repeatedly from a certain end. Okay, now just to summarize this particular point, number one, this is one of the main reasons why people get stressed, or how other people behave or speak to them. What I'm trying to say is, other people are often stressed, so give them the benefit of doubt. If they've said something to you that you don't like, try to forgive them if possible. Try to ignore that if possible. If things are in extreme cases, right, like I said, something like abuse, that's not what I mean by forgive and ignore, right? Then you need to take the required action to get out of that situation that causes you that much stress, right? You need to do that particular thing. If somebody is a repeated offender in a way, right, but it's not something as extreme as physical abuse or something like that, or even verbal abuse for that matter, if it's not as serious as that, but he's doing the same thing again and again, that's repeating it, don't bring it up in that moment. Let that other person cool down as well, and then talk to that person and tell them that that is a behavior that you didn't appreciate, right? And that's a better time to talk about it, so you can actually find some kind of a solution in it, right? So yeah, this is an extremely important point if you want to reduce your stress levels. Otherwise, again, you're constantly going to be stressed around this thing. Okay. um, yeah, this is an extremely important one as well, and we discussed this partly earlier, right? We stress and worry about what others think of us. We tend to do this all the time, right? That we're so constantly worried about what people are thinking about us, right? And I think each one of us needs to stop that thing. Often people are very, very, very stressed out when they have to do any kind of public speaking, and if you actually think of it, there's just one very simple reason. And the simple reason is yes, there could be a business kind of implication on that, but the bigger implication often is we're just so busy about what people think about us, right? And like I said, in your 20s you think everybody's thinking about you, in your 40s you realize nobody is, by the time you're in your 60s you realize people are busy thinking about themselves, right? So don't stress too much about this particular thing of what people are thinking about you, right? It's a sheer waste of your time. And in a way, what you need to do is you need to practice this thing of not concerning yourself with what people are thinking about you, right? It literally takes a lot of practice and training of the mind in order to do that, because this is such a natural human tendency for us. Okay, and if you're going to live by what other people think about you, it's going to be a big problem in itself, right? And the last point connected to this thing is, a lot of time we get weighed down with others' expectations of us, and sometimes what we think are others' expectations of yours, right? And this, the first point especially, is more close to getting weighed down with other people's expectations, often just the expectations of our families and friends, right? And especially our families, people close to us, they have a certain expectation of us, and then we are constantly feeling that particular pressure of living up to that particular expectation of theirs. Right now, what I'm trying to tell you is that say, for example, if you came from a family where your parents wanted you to become a doctor or an engineer or a CA, right, or take one of those professions, there was actually nothing wrong with their particular logic. And the reason why they told you to do those things is because at that point of time, those were the most secure professions, right? And the reason why they pushed you into it is because they loved you and they wanted you to take up those secure things. So there's nothing wrong with your parents thinking and why they were pushing you, right? Because maybe they saw firsthand what happens when people don't get the right education and in the right stream, right? So it all came from a space of love. But sometimes what happens is, even though they are your families are coming from a space of love, you really want to do something else, right? And you decide to take up your own path, and you decide to do that, but then you're feeling that constant pressure of somebody's expectation. Oh, they expected me to do this, but I'm doing that. Listen, go back to perspective. Life is too short, right? If life is too short, and if you are truly passionate about doing something, you should do it, but know the risks that come along with it, right? So for example, I was giving you the acting example, right? So my family member that got into acting, he was into engineering first, and he was doing a job there, and he quit that particular thing and got into acting. Right now, his parents really forced him into getting engineering, and their logic was, get a good education, so you're more secure in your life. And he chose to leave something which is more secure to go into something which was more insecure. Now that comes into its own set of problems that are there. As long as you know that the set of problems are there, where you choose a line which is more risky, then you may not have money, your friends may have much more money than you may not be able to do the basics of what you want to do. When your friends go for a holiday, you won't have that, because you chose another line, right? You chose another path. Then totally be comfortable and own that particular path that you've chosen, and then don't constantly be worried about what other people are expecting of you, or what they want of you, right? Then again, because that is again a huge source of people's kind of stress on them, right? And that's again something that you should avoid. So on the people front, just to go back and to recap, the first thing to keep in mind is that one of the big reasons of stress is what we call interpersonal stress, right? And what interpersonal stress means, that just people, what they say to you, how they behave, that causes us a lot of stress. And we need to learn to forgive and ignore, because wisdom is knowing what to ignore. And I'm not talking about the extreme cases. Talk to them when you can, when they're in a better state of mind. Be more kind to people, be more forgiving to people. Know that even they are stressed out about a lot of things, right? Learn to do that. That's a good way to improve your interpersonal relationship and reduce your stress. Okay, number two, don't get constantly involved in what people are thinking about you, right? You need to consciously train your mind not to do that. Number three, don't get weighed down by other people's expectation. A lot of your family's expectations are because they love you in a way, and they want you to do certain things, right? Because they love you. A lot of your parents may want you to get married, right? And you say, "Arey, my parents have huge expectations." Now, why do they have those particular expectations? Your parents want you to get married because they know companionship is important, right? And why is companionship important? Because life is tough in a lot of cases, right? And when those tough things happen, it's good to have a good companion. They want you to have kids. Why would they want you to have kids? Because they had kids, and it was such an amazing feeling for them to have kids and have family. So they want you to do it. Now, that is their logic. It comes from a space of love. But for you, it's become an expectation from you, right? And you are taking tremendous pressure about that particular expectation. And know that in the end, you need to choose your own path. And in that own path that you choose, you're likely to make your own mistakes, and your ability to deal with stress is very, very important, so that when you make those mistakes, when you have those setbacks, when you have those failures, you are in a much better space to deal with those particular failures. And that's what we're trying to kind of do through all these sessions for you, so that from the behavioral point of view, you know